Okay, thank you guys. Just gave it a few minutes to let a few more people join in. I want to thank you for joining us today. My name is Jeremy White. I am the president of King Benefits Insurance Solutions. We're here in Carlsbad. I'm entering my 16th year with the company here. We specialize in employee benefits, HR technology, and compliance for employers. And over the last couple of years, we've carved out a bit of a niche consulting on PEOs and helping businesses review their PEO as an option, or review the ability and idea of leaving a PEO. So we do partner with PEOs, and we do assist with moving and shopping alternative PEOs. But what we found is, for the majority of businesses we work with, it's really not the best fit. We're going to get into some details, some things to consider, some pain points that we've heard over and over, and just give you a few things to think about. On the call today, I have Peter Katkoff. Peter is with Benchmark Insurance, also here in Carlsbad, and Stacy Fredrickson with Paylocity HR and Payroll. I'll let them give themselves their own quick little introduction when they begin to talk. So really what the value our team is bringing to the table, I think, is that for most employers, it's a pretty daunting task. It's a lot of work to look at the idea of removing themselves from a PEO, which is primarily what this presentation today will focus on. So the value that we can bring is that provide that single point of contact. We really will do all of the legwork. So we'll go out to market, we'll find the best carriers, the best providers, and then bring it back to you on a single spreadsheet for you to review and compare to your current PEO, and potentially alternative PEOs as well. So the PEO promise, you know, when you get signed up for one of these things, it's a nice package. It looks great on paper. They're going to tell you that it's your payroll, it's your benefits, HR and workers' comp, all tied in on one platform, and a really nice and easy to use package to make your life simpler. And in addition to that, the idea is that you're essentially a co-employer with your PEO. You're a partner, you're leasing your employees and part of your business from your PEO partner. The promise is that you share in the liability, that they help you outsource your HR responsibilities when it comes to recruiting and onboarding and all the administering benefits questions, and the idea of pooled employers joining together, so smaller employees joining together for more buying power when it comes to your employee benefits, the health insurance, the dental, life, disability, buying power when it comes to your workers' comp, and a better suitor rate. They have a very nice platform. The technology is there. They tell you that, hey, this is the benefits admin platform that's the equivalent of a Fortune 500 company, and you can't get this anywhere else for a company your size. And then, of course, they also help process payroll and manage your taxes. So what we found is the promise isn't always necessarily the reality. Employers aren't seeing a return on investment that they had hoped for, and that really employers can get access to a lot of the same technology at a fraction of the price, even small employers. They give themselves more flexibility and more control when they're outside of a PEO. So when I say the reality is that you do lose some control of your business. The PEO is completely in charge of your risk pool, and the other businesses that are in this risk pool with you, who they let in, it's up to them, and it does affect your rates when it comes time to renew. A problem we hear over and over again is the access to your data. Pulling reports from the PEO platforms can be a pain. Something as simple as getting a census that includes dependents. So this is information on your employees and the people that work for you and their dependents, and getting something as simple as a date of birth for one of those dependents can be difficult. And what we see is that companies tend to get into these PEOs as startups, And then, assuming they're growing, you can quickly outgrow the need for the services that they provide, because you have the staff, you have the people in place to administer some of these programs that the PEO promised in the beginning that you really don't need now. And it is a one-size-fits-all model. So there's not a ton of flexibility. You're on the same platform. You could have 100 employees. You're on the same platform as the guy next door with 2 employees. So that one-size-fits-all model is something that becomes a problem when you look at the benefit plans and the carriers with your limited options and the master policy that the insurance policies are on. It really does limit an employer to really only a couple choices. From a customer service standpoint, this is a struggle with any big company that you're going to partner with. One particular PO that we've worked on a handful of cases in the last few months has actually taken away their dedicated kind of representative that worked with employers and replaced it with a call center that is putting people on hold for 45 minutes and then also taking 2 days to send the summary of the guidance or the advice that they had given. So there's certainly a lack of support for employers who need answers, and they need them as fast as possible. So all of that being said, those things take a toll on the bottom line for an employer. Some additional pain points that we hear is the confusion when it comes to the responsibility of things like filing taxes, and if those taxes aren't filed, who's on the hook? Who would the IRS come and penalize? There's a number of hidden fees for these PEOs that bundle their services together. There's certainly a lack of transparency, or there can be, and it asks the question is, are you getting exactly what you need? So with the lack of transparency, sometimes you might be paying for services that you don't necessarily need. And overall, these PEOs are quite expensive. So on average, they either charge you on a per employee per month basis of $50 to $100, or if you're with a PEO that charges on payroll, they tack on 2 to 10% on top of your payroll costs. So it can get quite expensive. And there's also the consideration on whether you're with a certified PEO or a non-certified PEO, and what that means is you're dependent upon your PEO partner to pay your share of employer taxes. So if those employer taxes aren't paid and you're with a non-certified PEO, you could be on the hook for that money and get quite a surprise. As I mentioned before, when it comes to the employee benefits piece, you're operating off of a master policy, so you're limited on the carriers that you can pick from. You're limited on plan designs. What you're missing out on is the lack of a local advisor, which is so important, especially in where I'm located here in San Diego County, Southern California. It's a little unique to maybe the rest of the country here, in that we have HMO products that are very competitive. We've got some really strong medical groups, and carriers get creative, and there's constantly new products out there that are leading in price and leading in innovation when it comes to the way they position their networks to get the best prices for businesses. So you don't have that flexibility when necessarily when you're looking at the benefits package tied to a PEO. One thing I did want to point out is some of the PEOs are starting to allow businesses to carve out the benefits. So it is possible that if you're on a PEO platform, you don't like the benefits, they'll allow you to carve out and remove that section from the PEO platform. Another thing, if you are with a PEO that you'll want to dig into, and we can help you do that, is to find out what's happening with your Section 125 credits. So some of the PEOs will actually keep the contributions, the portion of the employee contributions to the medical, dental, vision, FSA, HSA, and 401k. So what that means is, if you want to do a rough calculation on what that means to you or to the employer's tax credits that you're not seeing is you take that total contribution by 7.65%, and that's the equivalent of the credit that should be coming back to the employer. Some of the PEOs will give that back, but several are keeping that credit for themselves. Okay, I'm going to ask Stacy now to jump in and talk about HR and payroll.
Yeah, great. So again, Stacy Fredrickson. I'm with Paylocity. We're an HR software service provider. A little bit about me, I like to consider myself a recovering HR professional. I come from 20 years within corporate HR payroll, only recently moved to the other side of business development for HR software. Next slide, a little bit about Paylocity. I'm sorry, first let me go into a little bit about, I think Jeremy brought up some really good points. This more than ever is a good time to look to determine if PEO is the right option, whether you're in it now or you're looking to get out of it. COVID really hasn't been too kind to PEOs. The renewal rates have been excessively large, as well as there's actually been quite a few companies declined, really going back to that COVID. So, you know, evaluating and asking the questions beyond just that cost structure. Is it right for you when it comes to the service level? Are you getting a dedicated account, or are you being flip-flopped around of whoever answers the phone or a queue or a call center? And do you have a commitment when it comes to your HR, your payroll needs of how much time they can spend helping and ensuring that you're on task or staying in compliance? And that even being said, I hear quite a bit from our clients coming out of a PEO that they really have lost control when it comes to the best interest of their people, whether it's how they manage their own employees. Going back to what Jeremy said, is it's a shared liability. So there's sometimes where you lose control of how you're handling employee issues, whether you can terminate them or not. So it really, you know, losing the not only the service level, but even the control you have within your own company. All right, next slide from there. All right, a little bit about Paylocity. We are what we consider a one-stop solution, really for your entire employee life cycle. I like to think of it as pre-hire to retire, and you can definitely see the bullets that we have. The software for all levels, whether you're recruiting, whether it's the onboarding, helping you with the benefits. And really in the most recent years, our evolution has been to be the most modern software service provider for you, really focusing on how are you communicating, collaborating with your employees? Do they have instant access to their own database, their own information 24/7, you know, the mobile opportunities, and really addressing that development need that they're craving. And I think we were lucky that we were already in the works of this before going back to COVID, and before really having that such a necessity for the remote lifestyle. That's one of the areas that we're definitely been helping our clients with. So we mentioned earlier, you know, the PEO promise and not always there. One of the things you may be understanding is that you're getting a benefit of your SUTA tax, that state unemployment, that coming into a PEO, that means you're going to have better rates. It's not necessarily the truth. You kind of lose control over your own individual unemployment claims and where that puts you into a tax bracket. You are at the mercy really of everybody else in that PEO. So again, kind of peeling apart some of the layers of really looking, is it that financially best thing, and some of the things they promise you from a payroll doesn't always hold true. HR service. Now, another kind of leading cause to a PEO is a smaller company, and they say, I really feel secure having that. I know there's an HR team supporting me and really looking out for me. So that is something that Paylocity does to address. We have what we call HR on demand, and it's really giving you access to certified professional HR partners. You can stay with one particular, you really go pick and choose who your team is. So if you have one HR certified professional that you like, you can continue to reach out to them, so you do have consistency in your team. But we also have that online resource, whether it's going in and being able to look at legal updates, or having a library of documents, sample policies, being able to build a handbook from the ground up, and really at very reasonable rates. So you're not paying for, what it would be equivalent to, again, going into a PEO is a lot of those fees you could have a full-time HR person. So keeping the fee structure in mind to what you need and when you need it. And then a little bit about customer service. I think at the end of the day, we are a software company, but we're also 50% service. So having that person who is your expert, who you can call, who's got really something as simple as office hours in California from 5 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. and that we're stateside, that you're talking to individuals here in your time zone. So kind of, something that seems so simple, but definitely you want to do your due diligence and make sure where their hours are and really where they're out of. Is there going to be any kind of conflict of even communication style? So with Paylocity, you get a dedicated account manager. And I think our service model, the reason why we're kind of best in class with that dedicated manager, knowing that people go on vacation or they're on another line, you're supported by a pod. So even if your account manager is busy, it rolls to the next person. Let's say 5 to 7 people on your team, you always have a live person you talk to. We don't even have the voicemail. So you have a live person. You can also do a live chat. And of course, we have a peak knowledge center. So really ensuring that you are getting the best customer service. You're talking to the experts who are not transferring you on to the next person because they can't help you. So again, something worthwhile looking at. And kind of wrapping it up for me, and something I think Jeremy touched on is he talked a little bit about that cost structure, and definitely companies are growing out of, whether it's because of the COVID and the recent just really skyrocketing rates, or as you take on more employees. So with the PEO, you can be looking at your payroll spend. So how much payroll dollars, and then being charged a percentage. So whether that person's making $10 or 200,000, that's how the fee structure is based on your payroll. With Paylocity is you are paying on a per employee per month, and it's really based on the services that you've elected. So it's truly a fraction of the cost because it's right sizing it to the spend of the time and effort, not just on how much that employee makes, and we're going to take a slice of it. So that kind of wraps up from the pros of kind of evaluating your PEO when it comes to the payroll HR side. And I'll let us transfer into workers' comp from here.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Peter Katkov again. I'm from Benchmark Commercial Insurance Services here in Carlsbad as well. We've been around 26 years offering a boutique approach to the commercial property and casualty insurance marketplace for our clients in California and also nationwide. I've been with the agency going on 13 years now. Love what I do, and we've definitely, by teaming with partners like Stacy and Jeremy, have had success in taking the right prospect out of the PEO model and into what we call the standard market individual components of those coverages. And today I'm going to talk to you about the two traditional components of what I do that are built into the PEO model. The first is workers' compensation, and the second is employment practices liability. Now, workers' compensation is a state statutorily required coverage. It protects, from a high level, your employees from workplace-related injuries and illnesses. And from a cost perspective, it's often one of the most significant cost components of the PEO, alongside the benefits component. And one of the significant challenges in that PEO model is based on those monthly reports that you may get, it's very difficult to tell what exactly you are paying for the coverage that you're getting. Often you may have several different class codes, several different employee types, several different states that you have covered, and it's often very difficult to understand exactly what the cost per dollar of payroll you're paying for each employee. Also, from an administration perspective, when it comes time to try to deal with any issues you may be having with that policy, you as the PEO participant are not ultimately the policy holder. It's the PEO that is buying that policy from the work comp company. So you may not even be allowed to communicate directly with the carrier when it comes to claims issues or payment issues. which can often lead to significant headaches. One of the advantages that a PEO will often tout is they claim that you can dodge your XMOD or your experience modification, which is a calculation of your claims history. And recently, legislation in California has closed those loopholes. So every participant in the PEO now has to report their claims history, track their XMOD directly with the bureau that maintains those numbers. So it's impossible now to jump onto a PEO and simply dodge some bad claims experience that you may have. Also with the buying power that they claim they have. Often you're only with one carrier, you only have one option, as opposed to the open market where there's over 200 carrier options in California. It gives you a lot more options in terms of finding the right fit for your specific operation, whereas in the PEO, it's really a one size fits all. In the open market access, going through a broker like a Benchmark or others, like I said, much broader opportunity for market access, and that leads directly to better rates. There's really no reason to be with a carrier from a work comp perspective, aside from just getting the best cost per dollar of payroll that you can possibly get. And with that broad market option or market access, you get more capabilities. So if you have employees in multiple states, multiple different job duties, we can find and cater a carrier fit directly to that operation. With a boutique agency like Benchmark, you get in-house claim specialists. So their jobs are exclusively to hold the hand of a claim from the day that it gets open all the way to the day that it gets closed, to make sure that you don't have significant reserves impacting your loss history that causes money directly out of your pocket when it comes to calculating your XMOD and your rates. And with the open market, there are absolutely no additional fees, no hidden costs. What you see is what you get. You look on the deck page of your policy and you can tell to the penny what you're paying per employee per dollar of payroll. The second component of coverage that's often included in the PEO is employment practices liability, or EPLI. And simply that protects your company and your employees from allegations of wrongful termination, sexual harassment, discrimination, and hostile work environment. Extremely active area of coverage in California right now. The case law and legislation alongside the Me Too movement in recent years has really pushed claims activity and thereby cost of this line of coverage really through the roof. We typically like to see this coverage from a risk management perspective joined with directors and officers liability coverage. And the reason that is often those causes of action for a wrongful termination suit or a discrimination suit will often have cross complaints that cross into directors and officers liability coverage. And if you have two separate carriers that are insuring both of those lines of coverage, they could often point fingers at each other and try to deny coverage based on the fact that, oh, it's mostly an EPLI claim and not a DNO claim. And by combining those coverages with one carrier, you avoid that potential risk. One significant problem from an EPLI perspective, same as work comp, is you as the participant are not the policyholder. So they're looking out for the PEO's best interest, not necessarily your company's. So through the claims process, through selecting your attorney, through negotiating with those attorneys and negotiating through the settlement of that case, the carrier is often looking out not necessarily for your best interests. And in the PEO model, unfortunately, it truly is a one-size-fits-all approach to this line of coverage. So you may only have a $500,000 liability limit for EPLI, and if you have 300 or 400 employees, you certainly would need more limit in the event of a large class action. That 500 grand is going to be gone pretty quickly. Also, you're stuck with whatever deductible structure they may suggest. So you may have a $100,000 deductible, and in the open market, you may have options much lower than that. Two components we always like to see in standalone EPLI coverage are both third-party coverage and wage and hour coverage. It's getting a little bit more difficult in California to get those lines of coverage, but we try to, wherever possible, include those. So if you have 1099s that you hire on a regular basis, your EPLI coverage in the PEO does not extend to those independent contractors. Or if maybe you get a lawsuit from a prospective employee that you were interviewing and you decided not to hire them for one reason or another, and they claim that you discriminated against them. The EPLI policy on the PEO is not going to protect your company from that allegation. And wage and hour, another significant hot button in California right now, that protects you from allegations of not paying for overtime and breaks. And those class action suits can be several $100,000s to defend. And although a policy can't replace or pay for any back wages that you owe, the EPLI policy can cover you for the defense costs to defend yourself against an allegation. And a PEO EPLI policy specifically excludes wage and hour coverage. And in the open market model, we have access to all of the different products. You can have as much limit as is available in the marketplace, whatever deductible structure, specialized coverage to make sure that you get the coverage that's specifically suited to your operations needs. And similarly to work comp, we have specialized claims handling skills to help administrate that claim from the very first day that you get the demand letter all the way to post-settlement to make sure that the carrier and your attorney are acting in your company's best interest and not the PEO's. So I think from here, the most significant distinction, I think, from a touchpoint perspective on the health insurance benefits, the payroll, and on these components that I'm talking about are really differentiations in customer service. I mean, we're a 25-year agency based here in Southern California, and we are proud of our expert team that is always available to be your advocate in the marketplace. On that team, we have a health and safety consultant that's on staff at no cost to our clients, and that consultant can craft a bespoke OSHA compliant injury and illness prevention program. That's a mouthful. To make sure not only that you're compliant with OSHA regulations, but also that you're keeping your employees safe and implementing rules and regulations in your workplace that prevents future claims so that you can keep that work cost low. And we're very proud of our industry leading customer retention. We regularly keep over 98% of our clients return to benchmark year after year. We're very proud of that stat. I thought from there I'd jump into a success story. I think we'll all share some similar case studies. A couple of years ago, we had an opportunity presented to talk to a forklift sales and service company that had been with a PEO for a number of years. They have 4 Southern California locations. They had almost 200 employees. And unfortunately, they had a couple of workplace incidents that injured a couple of employees. And following those claims, the PEO jacked their rates, and the work comp component of that PEO cost went up threefold. And following that increase, it was very difficult to understand exactly what components of the cost were driving that increase. So we got involved to try to extricate them from the PEO, and the PEOs make it intentionally very difficult to get out of that situation. We need certain underwriting data. We need loss history directly from the PEO that any outside market carrier is going to need to see exactly what the cost of those claims are. And when they withhold that information intentionally, it makes it nearly impossible to leave. So after 3 months of struggle and eventually threatening legal action, we got the data that we needed. We found a carrier partner that got on board with partnering with this company to help them solve their claims issues, to provide them reasonable market rates. We built them that injury and illness prevention program, and eventually got them out of harm's way and out of that PEO. And by replacing the component parts of that PEO, payroll, benefits, work comp, and EPLI, their overall overhead costs went down over 50% from jumping from the PEO model into the standard market. And that's just one situation out of many that we know when we compile all those costs, we can certainly see significant savings and better service by breaking it apart. And to that, I think I'm gonna jump back to Jeremy. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I thought I'd share a few success stories as well. All 3 of these cases actually took place for January 1st of 2021. We were able to help all 3 of these companies well, actually, I'm sorry, the first two we did remove from the PEO model, and then the third story shown here is the 300 employee. We actually moved to another competitive PEO. But you can see here the savings are pretty significant. For the first scenario, it was a 45 employee tech company, and we brought in Paylocity as our payroll partner. Just saved a tremendous amount of money, over $67,000. There was quite a bit of savings in the workers' comp and a little bit of savings in the employee benefits. So when you look at these, when we dig in and we look at, review these PEO and do kind of a transparency analysis, help you figure out what you're paying and what's hidden, what you see, what you don't see. The savings, each scenario is different. So sometimes we recognize the savings when it comes to work comp. Sometimes it's tied to the benefits, and almost always there's a rather significant HR and payroll savings. So for a 45 employee company to save $122,000, they were thrilled, and I think it really kind of validated this niche that we are carving out for ourselves in being these PEO consultants and being the guys to do all the legwork and help people take a look at this stuff. So the second scenario was a 39 employee media company. The bulk of that savings came from the employee benefits. The reason for that is under the PEO model, this particular company had majority of employees outside of California. So the out of California PPO rates were very expensive, and we were able to install a California insurance carrier that had lower PPO rates than the PEO, and they recognized that over $100,000 on the benefits alone. And then finally, the third example is a 300 employee local medical device distributor. They actually, it made sense. We did an analysis to look outside of the PEO model compared to a couple of competitive PEOs. They chose to stay in the PEO model for payroll and for workers' comp. This was a scenario where we did carve out the employee benefits though, because we were able to get some better pricing in the local market than on the PEO, but they still recognized a savings overall of $86,000. So those are three stories, but just a few months old. Companies were able to help, so I'm excited to continue down this road and hopefully help some additional businesses, some of you folks that are on this call right now. I want to just point out some key dates. These are kind of the four main PEOs that we run into. Of course, ADP, Total Source, TriNet, Insperity, and Paychex. And they all have different renewal dates. ADP is coming up. All of their clients are going to be seeing a renewal of June 1st, and we'll be seeing their actual renewals, should be getting their renewal pricing, right around now. So this week, certainly in the first part of March, those renewals will be available. The way TriNet handles their renewals, it's on a quarterly basis. So whatever quarter the client initially enrolled in, first, second, third quarter, whatever month that is, the equivalent of the quarter is when they will see their renewal. One thing I want to point out though is that you don't have to necessarily wait until your renewal to review this stuff. It takes some time, so you want to give yourself some time to ramp up and evaluate, and give us time to evaluate for you. And any time that we can make a change on the start of a quarter, it's a clean change. So you don't necessarily have to wait until your renewal. You don't have to wait until the start of the year. If we have time to evaluate and do our due diligence and make a move to start a new quarter, then we've done it multiple times, and it's going to be as clean as possible. And if you're interested in evaluating your PEO and evaluating the different services that we spoke about today, we have a checklist that we can kind of run through with you on how to assess your PEO, things to consider, and a checklist of items that we would need and to request to do our review. We'd be happy to email that over. This is our contact information for myself, Stacy, and Peter in our emails. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and we would love to hear from you soon. Thanks so much.